Does your senior dog seem different lately? He might be trying to tell you he's anxious, and you don't even realize it. These are 5 warning signs every pet parent should watch for. Don't ignore these subtle clues. They could mean your dog is struggling inside. Here's how to spot them and bring peace back to your best friend's life.
You know, it's one of the hardest things to see as a dog owner. Your best friend is clearly distressed, nervous, and they just can't tell you what's wrong. If you've ever felt that pit in your stomach watching your dog shake or act out, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's get into it. Let's figure out what's really going on, and more importantly, what we can actually do to help. Maybe for you, it's that trembling that starts the second they hear a distant rumble of thunder. Or maybe you come home from work to find your couch cushions have, exploded again. These aren't just funny little quirks your dog has, they're very often clear signs of real anxiety.
Okay, so here's the most important mindset shift we have to make right from the start. When your dog is being destructive or barking nonstop or having accidents inside, it's not being a bad dog. It's not trying to get back at you. These are symptoms. It's a distress signal. It's basically the only way they know how to scream for help.
So, if we're going to help them, we first have to learn to speak their language. And that means learning to spot the signs of anxiety, both the really loud, obvious ones, and, just as importantly, the quiet ones that are super easy to miss. All right, so the obvious signs? Well, they're pretty hard to ignore, right? We're talking about the nonstop barking or howling when you leave, the pacing back and forth like a caged tiger, chewing on furniture or walls, even sudden aggression or licking themselves raw. These are the giant red flags screaming that something's not right.
But, and this is so important, anxiety isn't always loud. As animal behavior experts will tell you, sometimes the most anxious dog in the room is the one who's completely silent. The dog that just lies by the door for hours, not eating, not drinking, just waiting. That quiet suffering is just as urgent a call for help as a shredded sofa. Okay, so now we know what to look for. The next big question is, why? What's actually causing all this distress? Well, anxiety in dogs isn't a one-size-fits-all problem. It can be triggered by a whole bunch of different things. First, you've got what's called situational anxiety, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. Anxiety triggered by a specific situation. You know the classics: thunderstorms, fireworks, that monster we call the vacuum cleaner. For some dogs, even just the jingle of your car keys can kick off the panic because it means a trip to the vet is coming.
And then there's the big one, separation anxiety. This is a genuine, deep-seated fear of being alone. It's not your dog being bored or spiteful. It's a full-blown panic attack that kicks in the moment you walk out the door. And it can happen to any dog at any age.
And this right here, this is one of the most common ways that panic comes out. When a dog with separation anxiety is chewing on the door frame, they're not just being naughty. They are desperately trying to relieve an overwhelming amount of stress and fear. And you know, we can't forget our senior dogs. For them, anxiety can start to show up for totally new reasons. As their eyesight or hearing starts to fade, the world can become a really confusing, kind of scary place. Chronic pain from something like arthritis can also show up as anxious behavior. And then there's something called canine cognitive dysfunction, which is basically a dog version of Alzheimer's that can cause real confusion and distress. Okay, we've talked about the signs, we've talked about the causes. Now for the most important part. What in the world do we do about it? The good news is there's so much we can do. We have a whole toolbox of strategies we can use to help our best friends feel safe and calm again.
Because this is the goal, right? A dog that isn't just surviving, but is genuinely happy, feeling confident and relaxed in their own skin. And I promise you, it is absolutely possible to get there. So here are 7 natural approaches you can try right at home. A really good run or a fun puzzle toy can work wonders by releasing those feel-good chemicals in their brain. Simple things like calming music or a little lavender oil can totally change the vibe of a room. Then there are products like DAP diffusers. They mimic the calming scent of a mother dog. Or a pressure wrap like a Thundervest, which is kind of like a constant, reassuring hug. And hey, never underestimate the power of a good old-fashioned massage.
Let's just talk about CBD for a second, because the science behind it is pretty cool. Your dog's body has this thing called the endocannabinoid system, and it helps regulate their mood. CBD oil works with that system to help their body produce more serotonin, which is basically the body's natural built-in chill-out chemical.
Now, beyond products, we can actually help retrain our dog's brain. It's a technique called counter-conditioning, and it is a game changer. As behavior expert Kathy Riley puts it, the whole idea is to replace a scary thing with a really good thing. So for example, if your dog freaks out when the mail carrier comes, you start giving them a super high-value treat, like we're talking pieces of chicken, the second the mail carrier shows up. The mail carrier leaves, the chicken stops. Over time, their brain literally rewires itself. The mail carrier isn't a threat anymore. They're the magic person who makes chicken appear. Now for separation anxiety, the main goal is to gently teach them that being alone is safe and maybe even kind of fun. A predictable daily routine makes them feel way more secure. Teaching them to love playing with a puzzle toy by themselves even when you're still home is a huge step. It builds their confidence that they can be okay without you right by their side.
But sometimes you can try all the toys, all the training, all the natural remedies, and the anxiety is just too big. And that is okay. It is not a failure on your part, it's just a sign that it's time to bring in the pros.
So what happens when you've tried everything you can think of and your poor dog is still struggling? This is the point where your veterinarian becomes your absolute most important teammate in this. Your vet might bring up the idea of medication, and a common one you'll hear about is trazodone. That's a fancy word for an anti-anxiety medication. And look how it works. It helps increase the amount of that same mood-stabilizing chemical, serotonin, in the brain. It can be an incredibly effective tool that provides some much-needed relief.
And it's used for exactly the kind of problems we've been talking about. Those really intense phobias of thunderstorms or fireworks, severe cases of separation anxiety, or even just to make stressful things like vet visits or being cooped up after surgery way more manageable for your dog.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway here. A vet visit is absolutely non-negotiable. Why? Because sometimes what looks like behavioral anxiety is actually a symptom of physical pain. A dog can't tell you, my back hurts or my tooth is killing me. So instead, they might act restless or agitated or aggressive. Your vet has to be the one to rule out any underlying medical problems first.
So at the end of the day, your most important job is to be your dog's advocate. That means understanding that punishing them for being scared will only pour gasoline on the fire. It means being a patient detective, watching and learning to figure out what their specific triggers are. And most of all, it means teaming up with your vet to make a plan that's just for them. By understanding what's happening inside their head and knowing all the different solutions out there, you can literally change your dog's world from a scary place to a safe one. So after everything we've talked about, what's the very first step you're going to take to help your dog?